Athlean X, this guy. You know him, you love him, 14.3 million subs, doctor of physical therapy. He has gone up a bit since the last time I covered one of his videos. Me, this guy. Also a DPT, still minus 14.3 million subs. But you all could help with that. Jeff's latest message to the world: do these 5 exercises every single day, or your hips are silently melting into goo.
Degeneration in the hip. Before it gets too late, bone on bone loss as the hip degenerates to shift those forces to other places in your body. And it's gonna be harder and harder to get it back. It becomes a degeneration issue.
I counted 8 separate "your body is falling apart" warnings in 6.5 minutes. That's more than one horror claim per minute. I'd call that rapid fire fear mongering. Now, a daily mobility routine is actually pretty freaking good. The exercises aren't really the problem. The problem is wrapping useful mobility in a medical scare tactic. It's like saying,
"Scared yet? You should be, bitch."
And that's just irritating. As someone who's actually rehabbed hip degeneration in actual people, I think I should talk about that. Episode 1 of this series was about whether specific exercises belong in a graveyard. Well, none of these exercises are dangerous. Well, actually, we'll come to that. Most are genuinely useful. But when you tell more than 500,000 people, at the time I recorded this, that your hips are degenerating because you don't do this right now, you're not educating, you're farming fear. So let's get into it. 5 exercises, what's right, what's wrong, and what Jeff kind of conveniently skips.
All you're gonna do is spin your knees to the left and then push further, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drive this hip into internal rotation and use this down hand with the back of my elbow and my hand on the floor to push further into internal rotation. And we know about internal rotation loss is it starts to happen as an early indicator of degeneration in the hip.
All right, so this is the claim that made me say I gotta do an episode on this. Jeff says losing internal rotation is an early indicator of hip degeneration. And sure, people with advanced hip OA do lose internal rotation. That's a real correlation. Research exists. But here's 2 points that he's leaving out. Any injury to the capsule of the hip will cause a loss of range of motion. But more importantly, correlation is not causation. Losing a few degrees of internal rotation does not mean your hip is dying. It means, stay with me here, big revelation, you stopped moving into that range. Muscles guard. Your nervous system says, hey, we haven't been there in a while, so how about we don't? It's called protective stiffness. It's not your femoral head grinding through your acetabulum. It's your body doing its job.
Hip joints. Who wants a hip joint?
And the fix. First, ask yourself, is it necessary? Do you have some life function that requires that level of mobility? Do you need to place the inside of your ankle and the inside of your knee on the ground at the same time? If the answer is yes, then do exactly what Jeff's showing. Graded exposure mobility work. Moving into the range consistently, a little bit at a time. The exercise itself is good, but you don't need to tell people their hips are degenerating to sell them a stretch. You can just say, this helps. No nightmare fuel required.
The next exercise up is one that involves a muscle in that low back, because this muscle gets tight when you sleep. And we slide a leg back and then drop the hip down to the floor. This arm stays pretty straight. Now you can see all that stretch in this muscle called the QL.
All right, point of fact, your QL does not, I cannot stress this enough, get tight when you sleep. You're horizontal, you're unconscious. Your muscles aren't running some sort of secret tightening protocol while you dream about whatever it is Jeff dreams about. Morning stiffness not that kind of stiffness, you pervert, is joint fluid viscosity and disc rehydration. Your spinal discs absorb fluid overnight. You're literally taller in the morning. That stiffness is not a tight QL. It's your discs being plump. Your discs are somewhat like sponges. If you squeeze them, they lose fluid. If you remove the squeeze, they reabsorb the fluid. This takes up space inside the joint, limiting mobility. Actual muscle tightening is a permanent anatomical change that takes place over an extended period of time. On a microscopic level, there are changes in about 2 days of pure immobility. Functional change takes place in a week or 2. Again, of immobility, not a good night's sleep. The stretch works. I have zero problem with the movement. I have a problem with a PT telling 500,000 people their muscle gets tight when they sleep. Like it's a medical fact and not something you just said.
Because I said so!
This is now the squat reach. So in this position here, all I'm gonna do is use this arm to, again, leverage and post off of that inside leg, and then rotate up and reach as high as I can.
All right, this is a solid thoracic mobility drill. Deep hip flexion, which most adults desperately need, combined with rotation through the upper back, where rotation should actually come from. It can't rotate much, your ribs and intercostal muscles get in the way, but it does more than your lumbar spine, which really shouldn't rotate hardly at all. If your upper back is a brick, your lower back pays the bill because, you know, pain
finds a way.
Jeff's biomechanics here are correct. I've seen this clinically more times than I can count. Stiff thoracic spine, compensatory lumbar rotation, low back pain. That chain is real. The delivery still got that apocalypse energy though. Forces shift to places that can't handle it. Sounds like the tagline of a spinal disaster movie, but the exercise is good and the reasoning isn't wrong. Just, tone it down, guy. It's a stretch, not a post-credits scene.
Down and your head down, chest down towards the ground to get that thoracic extension through your mid-back. From here, bring your hands in, feet go down, drive your knees back as far as you can to try to stretch the hamstrings dynamically.
Honestly, I'm good with this one. I like active stretching, and moving from one stretch to another in a flow is good stuff. It's yoga. They've been doing it for thousands of years. Just make sure you have a mirror to your side to ensure your low back stays straight. He doesn't mention it, but if you have tight glutes, you might round out your back. If your low back rounds out in this position, you're loading your discs under a heavy anterior compression. Have you heard the term slipped disc? Not very professional term, but it means what it means. And then, weirdly enough, he doesn't dig into any fear-based language here, so yay that, I guess.
You're gonna lean as far forward as you can. Okay, what this does is, yes, it does stretch the hip flexors on the back leg, but it's really getting into deep, deep hip flexion. Chest to knee if you can.
This one's mostly fine. There's one thing Jeff skips that I kind of can't. That chest to knee deep hip flexion. If you saw my previous video, I'll link it here. Jeff mentioned not doing upright rows because they are effectively a shoulder impingement test with weight.
The problem I have with the upright row is the nature of the exercise itself puts us into an impingement position.
This knee to chest thing. Yeah, that's the beginning of a movement called the scour test. It's an anterior hip impingement stress test. In this case, he's doing it with body weight. If you have FAI, femoral acetabular impingement, a cam lesion, or any other problem with your hip labrum, driving deep hip flexion will pinch the labrum. And you'll know it because it hurts right in the front of the hip. Use that information however you feel is necessary. Jeff says chest to knee if you can. There's no but stop if you feel pinching. No, if this hurts, don't do it. Or at the very least, if it pinches right here, it might mean this. For a video about exercises everyone should do daily, and coming from a guy who knows what an impingement test looks like, that warning seems like it should matter, because the people searching daily hip exercises are the people whose hips already hurt. The rear leg psoas stretch, that's fine. It's basically a modified Thomas stretch position, which is already how we assess hip flexor length, so that stretch works. But the front leg deep flexion needs a yellow flag for anyone with hip issues. And that's a lot of people watching this exact video. What I find odd is that he is apocalyptic about so many other things in this video, and he doesn't mention the two things that can actually hurt you. Here's what I want you to understand about this video specifically. Every single exercise Jeff shows is useful. I just spent 10 minutes telling you that. The movements aren't the problem, mostly, well, except for that lumbar compression and the hip impingement thing. This is a pattern I've seen across multiple Athlean X and really fitness influencer videos in general. We have useful information, high quality demonstration, real anatomical information. It's wrapped, however, in language designed to make you either afraid of your body or, God, I don't even know what. But here's the thing, fear works. Fear gets clicks, fear gets shares, fear gets 500,000 views in a month. But fear also makes people either afraid to move or just flat out gives them analysis paralysis. And people who need mobility work, they're already worried that something's wrong. You don't need to pour gasoline on that fire. So here's the scorecard. 5 exercises, mostly all useful, mostly well explained, but the framing. Jeff, you're a PT. You know these exercises stand on their own. You don't need to tell people their hips are degenerating to sell them a stretch. A daily mobility routine is a good idea. Here, I'll give it to you. Here are 5 movements that'll make you feel better. That's a complete sentence. You don't need to add, or you'll fall apart. And if you're watching this and genuinely worried about your hips, so you've got some pain, you've lost some range, something feels wrong, go see a PT in person. A YouTube video, even from a guy with 14 million subs, is not a diagnosis. It's content. There's a difference. Episode 1 of this series, The Iron Graveyard, is in the playlist right here. Next time, I'll do Dr. Mike Israetel over at Renaissance Periodization. He's a PhD in sports science. I'm still going to call him doctor, even if there is some controversy. He claims certain exercises are useless based on your body type. We're going to have some fun with that one. So if you're a muscle nerd who wants the science without the scare tactics, subscribe. We're just getting started.